Hello and welcome through the door. We have special guest Tasman from the Blackdog Institute. Firstly, thank you for joining us. And secondly,
Thanks
how
so
are
much,
you?
James.
How are you going through everything and in general?
Look, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. And I'm going all right. It's been it's Mental Health Month, and for Black Dog Institute, that's our busiest month of the year by far. Actually, the couple of months leading up to it are really busy. So, it's been a really interesting time to be with Black Dog Institute and watch us respond to COVID and look after my own mental health as I've gone through that. So it's look, to be perfectly frank with you, I'm really looking forward to the end of October and having a bit of a lie down and a nap, I think.
Yeah, I bet. And with obviously with COVID, have you seen more what's the word? More activity through Black Dog with more people seeking help or anything like that, or it's still the same kind of numbers?
It's a very interesting question, actually.
Yeah,
When COVID first sort of happened in March, we very quickly understood this was going to be a significant mental health event for Australia and, of course, for the world. So we did some research, which is still ongoing, where we're asking people to respond and tell us really how they're going with their mental health. And 80%, 80% of people have come back, and I think there's over 6,000 people now who have gone through and taken that questionnaire. 80% said that their mental health was worse as a result of COVID, and 23% said it was significantly worse. So we have certainly seen a demand in evidence-based mental health services, and we are seeing, yes, anecdotally, sure, big spikes in demand for mental health support, and wonderful organisations like Lifeline and Beyond Blue are seeing between a 40 and 60% spike in calls into their call centres. So there's no hard data yet to,
yeah,
to support it, but it certainly is pretty telling that I think Australia is feeling worse mentally as a result of COVID, and we're all a bit unsure how to navigate this new territory, whatever
yeah.
this new world is.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no black book or blueprint on how to cope with a world pandemic. I'm sure, and it would have caught you all by surprise. But especially with
Mm.
mental health month, how important is that for you guys and in general to raise awareness because it is a key area.
Yeah. October is a really important month for us, and it sort of underpins our whole year, really. So there's we start talking about Mental Health Month in about February normally,
Yeah,
and we get to sort of end of October. We wrap it up. We only stop talking about it for a couple of months of the year, to be honest. It's the peak time for mental health awareness and understanding and destigmatization. So we very much do a lot of activity. And the big focus for Black Dog Institute this year, there were two, and the first was a white paper that we released into suicide prevention. Now, I'm not a mental health researcher or a health professional, so I'm not even going to try and sum it up
yeah,
because it's some really interesting findings there around suicide prevention, and you can find it freely available on our website. And that's some different thinking. We gathered some of the world's best experts on suicide around, not just in Australia but internationally, and they came to us with some really fantastic thoughts on moving the conversation and the evidence on suicide prevention.
yeah,
That's our first thing we did. And the other major part of our activity for October is our One Foot Forward campaign, which is our physical activation campaign, encouraging people to walk 20, 40 or 60 kilometres during the month of October for their mental health and ask their friends and family to support them. And to be really honest with you, James, we sort of launched this in August in response to most of our funding actually
yeah. Cool.
sort of in a way not materializing. Well, not in a way, actually not materializing. Only 5% of our overall funding at Black Dog Institute comes from the government. The rest we do fundraise for, and we had a couple of physical events that we had ourselves in May and October, and the winter running festival season. They were all cancelled or postponed.
Yeah,
So we launched One Foot Forward in response to that, and we launched it as a fundraiser, but also as a way to virtually connect more Australians together. And we've been just astounded by the results. We've raised over $5 million from that campaign, which has been
incredible.
just just a, I don't know, a heaven sent blessing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely needed at the moment. But what's been really, really fascinating and a learning that we're just so humbled by is the community that's created. So there's 30,000 people who are taking part in 1 Foot Forward, and there's about 5,000 of them now on the Facebook group, and a lot more that are connecting in other ways. And
Incredible.
it's
Yeah.
created this incredible community around support and help and lived experience that we just hadn't expected. There's just so many people who are actively saying, I'm not well, I'm not great. And as soon as they post in that Facebook group, there's 50 people within 5 minutes saying, we're here for you, we understand, we've got it, we share your experience. That's been really a positive, wonderful thing to come out of 1 Foot
Yeah.
Forward for us, and hopefully for the Australian community and mental health.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, yeah, as I said when I started it, I was obviously
Mm.
doing it to raise awareness and I've obviously helped my mental health. But I think the main thing that is amazing about what you just said is it's not just raising money, which is obviously needed, but you've created a community and now you've got these people that are going, I'm not feeling all right. And then they've got 50 people to make sure, you're okay or to make sure that they are okay. So it's just created an amazing thing. So not just the funding, but I think that I'm sure yous are very proud of and happy to see.
Yeah, we are, and it's the shared experience of lived experience. So lived experience means people who are living with mental illness or caring for someone who is looking after mental illness, and um, there's there seems to be a void of that sharing between people to say, I'm going through this, I need help, and there's lots of really fine, wonderful groups that come together locally, which we have on our website actually, which are support groups right across Australia. So if you're feeling unwell and you do want to have something more that's specific to your area, go onto our website. It's under support, and you
Perfect.
can look that up there. But we sort of hadn't expected virtually for people to connect so intimately and so with respect and great dignity. And yeah, it's been a real interesting outcome for us, and one we're just privileged to be part of, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know for myself, it's helped a lot, not just by obviously walking. It's given me a target each day to, all right, I got to do this, and just getting out and walking is nice, even though it has to be with a mask on and and all of that. But it's really good. And yeah, one of my good friends, Woody, got onto it. He is doing 150 kilometers. Well, I think he's hoping to get it up to 200. So it got me onto it.
Wow.
Yeah, not bad. And I'm doing 150. So it's good. I just get to connect with him and he checks in and say, how am I doing with my walk and everything. So even just that is amazing what you guys have created. So thank you. And it's heaps of fun actually.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that you've got that? We're seeing that people that are really unwell, that normally wouldn't do any exercise at all, are sort of, okay, I'm going to get up and walk my 1 or 2 kilometers today. I'm going
Yeah.
to go and do that. And we published some research about 5 years ago now from Dr. Simon Rosenbaum, which showed that just 1 hour of exercise a week decreases your risk of getting depression by up to 40%. So it shows the benefits of just a bit of movement, a bit of exercise. It doesn't need to be a lot. It just needs to
No,
be
not at all.
something. It can really change. And it's an interesting point you talked about there with with your mate who's walking. Jesus, 200K, that's a lot. And that connectivity, that sort of accountability that we have with each other to say that have you done your walks today? Are you okay? It's that social connection that we've shown through our research as well, to show that the more socially connected people are, the more that they are part of a community, the less likely they are to experience mental illness.
Yeah, and I think getting out and seeing obviously nature and all that really helps, and doing something, even if, as you said, it can be just a kilometer or even less, just doing something and having that want really helps. So yeah, it's really good. And as you said before, you've raised so far over $5 million, which is incredible for
Yeah.
yourself and the business, and for Australia should put their hands together for that. But what will that help contribute for you guys? What does that help with?
Yeah, you're right, and thank you to everyone who has donated, and helped and walked. And there's thousands and 65,000 people, who have either donated or taking part in One Foot Forward. So it's this huge community, and it's a very, very good question about where the money goes. So 5% of our Black Dogs funding comes from government. It comes in
Yep.
from government grants. The rest we fundraise for, and so what that money will go towards, and to be totally transparent with you, we are still in the process of allocating when that money goes. We
Yeah,
feel
cool.
a huge responsibility to spend that money as um, not prescribed, but as wished by those people that are taking part in One Foot Forward, and that is around mental health research. So we'll be funding a whole range of pioneering mental health research in the mental health space. They will most likely, but we're not quite sure where yet, but most likely will be youth and workplaces and Indigenous. A big focus for Black Dog Institute is making sure that Indigenous, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have the same mental health care and experience that anybody else does in Australia. That's one of our core 3 pillars. So we'll be developing some research and some support programs for those cohorts to make sure they are well looked after. We'll also be using some of that money to fund some of our work with first responders. So we are doing quite a bit of research in understanding the impacts of the bushfires and what happens next after a community, how they're supported, and the role of PTSD on a can have in a person's recovery after a big major traumatic event like that. Associate Professor Sam Harvey, who's our chief psychiatrist, is leading that research project. And what he's actually just telling me the other day, and again, I'm not a mental health researcher, so I can't talk to the science exactly, but he was explaining to me that going in and doing mental health training for a community who's just gone through crisis is apparently not best practice. That's actually not what they need at that time. They need grief, and they need support, and
Yeah,
they
okay.
need counselling. The training around mental health and PTSD needs to come after, and that's sort of starting to come to the fore now.
Yep.
So we are starting to gear up and work with different local communities affected by the fires to make sure that they take those next steps. So they might have received some grief counselling at the beginning, but what do they do? What happens when everyone packs away and goes home? What's their
Yeah.
long-term mental health look like? And so we're doing quite a bit of work in PTSD through Associate Professor Sam Harvey. So we'll be spending it in those major areas. And basically funding pioneering research that's going to help people with mental illness. Black Dog is the only independent medical research institute investigating mental health for the lifespan. So what that really means is we're the only researcher that does the whole demographic. We're one of
Amazing.
the very few researchers in Australia. There's a lot of great support services, wonderful support services, but very, very little in research. So we'll be spending that money on pioneering and making sure we're doing evidence-based research around mental health.
That's incredible. And yeah, everything you guys do is amazing. And yeah, thank you from myself and obviously everyone struggling. They're a big help. And the website, even that helps a lot. And even if everyone wants to help after the fundraising, you can get these good shirts from Black Dog, which I was very handy and to get my hands on. As soon as I saw those up for sale, I got on, and now I get to wear it most days when I walk. So they're always good. And for those, you touched on it a fair bit actually, but we'll get back to what, for those that don't quite know, what Black Dog Institute do and how it
Mm.
helps obviously everyone with mental illness and breaking the stigma, which is what we like to do here.
Yeah, sure. So there are 3 parts to Black Dog. There's research, which I sort of touched on, which is mostly in the youth, workplace, Indigenous space, but also, of course, right across the lifespan. So there's research, and we're really unusual in that most researchers in the world. They will spend a long time doing research. The research takes a long time to come to fruition, 10, 12 years to get something, from the beginning to when it's published. And then typically, and this is certainly not for all researchers, but typically research is published and then peer reviewed, and then there's not a lot of implementation that happens from the researcher itself. So the researcher always does a great job in putting the findings forward. And at Blackdog, we feel there's an enormous next step in how do we turn what we've learned from that research into assets and things that are going to help people with their mental illness. So a large part of what we is called knowledge translation. So we learn from the research and we build things that are going to help people with their mental illness. They're mostly in the e-mental health space. So we have a range of apps in market. We've got about 20 apps that are all evidence-based in market. And you might be surprised to know there's 338, I think, thousand mental health apps across the world now, and not a lot of them are evidence-based. So that's everything that Blackdog is. So we do the research, we understand, we pioneer, we then build assets and things to help people with their mental illness and support them long term. I'll just give a couple of quick examples. So one really pioneering thing, which might be good for some of your listeners, is the online clinic, which we built late last year. And this online clinic is a really fantastic diagnostic tool for anxiety and depression. And it will rank you from, sort of being relatively well to being relatively unwell. And it then gives you a report at the end of that, which is personalized, which is specific to you. And for me, look, I suffer from a bit of anxiety. And for me, it was spot on. It told me exactly how I was feeling and what to do next. And same for my family members who are struggling with mental illness. So if there's anybody out there who's perhaps knows that things aren't quite right, or that like to learn a little bit more about where they're at, and perhaps they're in a regional area where it takes weeks to get in to see a GP, jump onto the online clinic. That's a really fantastic tool. Takes about 15 minutes. And then another app is probably in the youth space, which I always really. There's two things I'll tell you about quickly, which is in the youth space, 75% of mental illness happens before the age of 25, and a lot of that actually happens in those school years. So Blackdog, being in the prevention space, working enormous amounts of making sure that we're providing evidence-based support to teens growing up with their mental health. And there's two things there. There's one thing called the Sleep Ninja app. There's a whole bunch of things, but one thing called the Sleep Ninja app, which is a really great app for kids who just, we know that if you don't sleep well, it can be a risk factor for depression. So the Sleep Ninja app teaches kids to get into a good sleep bedtime routine, teaches them when to go off devices, when to come back on, and will help monitor their sleep patterns, and will be a predictor for, if they're not getting enough rest, then will be a good predictor for making sure that they get back into good habits. So there's that. And then we've also got the world's largest research trial into youth mental illness, which is called Future Proofing, where we're following 20,000 year 8 students for 5 years and understanding through their mobile phone what are some of the predictors for mental illness. So things such as location, how much you're interacting with the rest of the society, or whether you're just going from point A to point B, how much you're sleeping, how much you're interacting with your phone, how you're interacting with your phone. All of this data it's collecting in the back end from school kids. And for anyone who's worried about data, please, we've spent years and years and years getting this data right and approved by the federal government. So it's a pioneering study. After 5 years, we're going to have such a great insight into what's happening with youth mental illness and when it happens and how to prevent it. So there are two sort of examples of the research that we've done and turned it into things that help people. And the third part of our organisation is going into going into communities and helping support them with their mental health. So actually people on the ground. We go into schools and teach a few programs, mental fitness and how to navigate your teens' well-being, which is where lived experience presenters will people. These are kids, or not any young people. They used to be kids who have gone through their own battles with mental illness, and they go into schools and help present these wonderful programs to kids. So we do that in kids. We also do a lot of training for allied health professionals. So we'll teach GPs and psychologists and all kinds of range of health professionals with the latest techniques, the latest research in terms of mental health. And we'll go into workplaces and do a lot of training around workplaces. And you spend 8 hours plus at work every day, and so that we're looking quite seriously as to whether your workplace can be a preventative place for ensuring that your mental health stays well. So that's our three bigs: is research, turning our research into things that can help people, and then going out into communities and actually doing that physical work.
Yeah, amazing. So it's really sounded like it's non-stop there at Blackdog, and it's all a lot of data creating, and you're doing it amazingly. I think obviously getting your data and making sure this is what's going to work. So it sounds incredible. And how do you cope with, oh, first of all, actually, before I get into that, how did you get into the Black Dog Institute, and how did that come about?
Oh, that's a great question. So I spent 20, what was I, 23, 4 years or something in the commercial world doing running big sales and marketing teams for travel companies. And I was running a sales and marketing team back in 2015, and a couple of things happened which kind of changed my life, really. This company that I was part of executed a strategy around where they find their clients, and we did it really poorly, really poorly. And the company, came across some troubled times, and it was very tough. We laid a lot of people off, and I was integral to that model. It
Yep.
placed this huge amount of stress on me, and at the same time, I was. This is such a first world problem, but I was talking to my wife for years about a home renovation that we're going to do. We're living in a tiny home, and we're talking
Yep.
about having more space, and we were on different pages about how that was going to look and what we were going to spend. Totally different, and we sort of realised, oh God, we're not going in the same direction. This is a bit awkward. And then my dog died, which sounds minor, but he was 15 years and my best mate. And when I lost him, it gutted me. And as a result, I didn't know it at the time, but I developed anxiety, and so I just sort of started suffering really bad panic attacks and bad disassociation. I couldn't get with it. I couldn't lock on. I wasn't present. I was quite outside my body a lot. Um, Elevated heart rate, sweating,
Yeah.
trouble breathing a lot of the time, really having a hard time. So I was part of that 60% of people who don't get help for their mental health. I was vehement. I went to my GP and said, it's blood pressure. I'm not eating right. Maybe my training's off, and she's like, no, maybe it's something else. And in the end, I was diagnosed with anxiety, and I thought, okay, it's time for me to bow out of this really high pressure corporate life and take a break. So I quit my job, and I then had always wanted to do a long walk. I don't know why I had this fascination with just walking for a serious amount of time and just going and kind of just leaving it all behind. And I said to my wife, I'm going to do this long walk. She's like, it's weird, but okay. And I thought, well, if I'm going to walk, I may as well raise some money. I may as there's no point just walking on my own randomly. That's a bit unusual. I'll raise some money. So I started this thing called the Superhero Walk, because I started to think, well, how could I do things a bit differently? And I believe my 6th year this year that I did it. And essentially what I do every year now is I get dressed up in ridiculous superhero costumes and do a
Incredible.
long walk. So that first year I walked from Narangba to Wagga Wagga, which is about 110K. And I walked dressed as different superheroes. So, the Flash and Wonder Woman and all these, really. So just picture, it's the middle of nowhere. It's in Riverina country. Farmers out there, in their paddocks, and there's Wonder Woman walking along a dirt track. But I immediately, as soon as I took that first step, the world of the weight fell off me, and I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. This feels right. This championing of a cause and giving and making social purpose part of my work life is everything. And it sort of just clicked. And I worked for a couple of not-for-profits before getting to the Black Dog Institute. Just sort of took a couple of contracts to see where I might land, and then ended up at Black Dog, leading their corporate partnerships, and have just loved every minute of it. It's such a wonderful place to represent. So I sort of found through my own mental health journey that I needed to be giving back. I needed some purpose in my life. I
Yeah.
was just making lots of cash for very rich people, and it was just debilitating in the end. So I'm thrilled now to be in this for-profit space, for-purpose space, and doing some good work. I love it.
That's amazing. It's good to hear, and I'm glad you got through the other side and you're feeling a bit better now. And it's amazing to hear. And so, yeah, the main message there, I think, is once we take that first step into getting help or helping ourselves, even like just with you quitting your job, which would have been stressful, but you probably needed to do it for your mental health, is amazing. So I think we urge people to who are struggling to just take a step in doing whatever you want to do, even if others are a bit iffy on it. You do what makes you happy. So thank you for taking the time out to speak and share your story. What do you like to do to de-stress or kind of help yourself if you're feeling a bit down, especially with your Blackdog work? You're very busy this year, and with the world pandemic, how do you like to make sure you stress less or everything? Because I'm sure you're a busy man.
Yeah, you're right. Stress levels at the moment are really significantly high, and this whole year has been pretty brutal, to be honest. And for me, I do a few things. I make sure that I eat well, so that means that I eat good level of veggies, good level of food that's healthy and nutritious, and I'm really conscious of that. I try and sleep 8 hours every night. I have a good bedtime routine. Make sure I read my book and I get to bed and I sleep 8 hours. I get a good rest, and I exercise. So I exercise like a demon. But I always have. But I know that if I don't, that I can become quite unwell. And I take moments to recognize I'm not doing so good. So there's only a couple of weeks ago where I was really just stressed with work and life. And my wife's, I'm at home now, but my daughter, my wife used to pick up my daughter from school and run around and everything. She's gone back to work full time. And so I'm at home. So I've got sort of more responsibility at home. And just being really honest with everyone around you to say, hey, I'm not doing so well today. I'm not great. Blackdog are really supportive, as you'd imagine, in this
Yeah,
space. But
amazing.
even just sort of telling my wife and my daughter, hey guys, today my anxiety is pretty high. I'm not great. And recognizing that those signs before they get too bad, so I don't get irritable or angry or narky. I am out and proud and say I'm really anxious today.
Yeah,
And yeah, being obvious with that, and then trying to slow my life down a bit. So I know that's the cliche, but just trying not to do as much. We sort of cancelled most of our, so any social activities this year, and just at home, just trying to, regroup and stay on top of each other and make sure that we're okay.
yeah,
And then even to little basic things like I know that when I'm feeling anxious, I'll start to get short of breath and hyperventilate a bit. So for me, just even a little trick is when I come to do public speaking sometimes, or if
yeah,
I'm somewhere where I can feel myself getting a bit anxious, I will breathe in for 7 breaths. So really slowly breathing in. I'll then hold it for 7 breaths and then breathe out for 7 breaths. And you can do that without anybody really noticing. You can
yeah,
be just quietly sitting there, just breathing. And I found just that one little technique has allowed me to just be in the moment and take it easy and take a step back and put a bit of perspective on everything. So yeah, it's been a really tough year for us, but also it's a year that this is the time for Blackdog. This is our time
yeah.
to shine, and we've relished the opportunity to get out there and help those people in Australia who aren't doing so well.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. And thank you for coming on the show. And I'm sure the guests appreciate it. I sure do. And hopefully it helps get the word out about Black Dog Institute, and then the conversation of what to do if you're not feeling well. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's all about being honest and um, probably watching for signs if you notice someone that's a bit, having those sweats or going through a bit. So that's pretty good there. And where can we find information on Black Dog or anything like that? The apps. Where can we go? Or the listeners can go to get onto that.
So all of everything is on Black Dog Institute. We just got a brand new website, actually only a couple of months old, so it's really easy to navigate there. There is so much information there. For anybody who's starting to feel unwell, there's everything from podcasts to fact sheets, lots and lots of generalized information. So what exactly is depression? What are the signs? What are the symptoms? What should you feel? What do you do next? So jump on our website; it's all there. And if you want to be part of a bigger community, all our social channels is where a lot of people share as well and share their own lived experience. So come along and join the Black Dog community.
That's amazing. Yeah, do that, everyone. If you're listening, get along. It's a big help, and I've been on there a few times, and to see everyone supporting each other and all the work you guys do is amazing. And I think it's a tough day for me in the in honesty, you shared your story. So 18 years today, we lost my father to suicide.
Oh,
So
I'm so sorry.
yeah, no, all good. It's one of those things, unfortunately, and obviously we've come such a long way in the world from 2002 to now, especially with
Yeah.
the work you guys are doing. The awareness of this, I'm sure, 18 years ago, two blokes probably wouldn't have been talking about mental health and all that. But yeah, it's a tough day for the family and stuff. But I thought, obviously, it's a bit of an omen to have such a guest on as yourself from
Mm.
such a big institute on. So yeah, it means a lot to me and the family. And yeah, hopefully that message helps. But yeah, that's all I wanted to share. But yeah, it's amazing where we've come, and I'm sure you've seen that from maybe even from when you started with Blackdog to now. The stigma is slowly breaking of men talking and reaching out.
Yeah, James, I'm so sorry to learn of your dad. And my wishes and my thoughts are with you.
Thank
On
you,
this
sir.
day, it would be a really, really tough day. Oh gosh, I really feel for you. And yeah, you're right. Men's mental health, men don't like to talk. I mean, I didn't want to go along and get help. I know that, and I know some mates who are in the same position. And men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than females. And suicide is the leading cause of death still for 15 to 44-year-olds. So there's a lot of work to be done in the suicide space, and we're doing quite a bit of research at the moment to show. And again, I'm not a health professional, so what I'm saying is not absolutely research based, but from anecdotally, what we're learning is. To have the conversation around suicide is more helpful than not. You can't actually really say the wrong thing compared to not saying anything at all. So actually asking somebody, have you had thoughts of suicide? Do you have suicidal ideation? Is a really helpful thing. No one might have asked that person. That might be the thing that saves it. So yeah, please reach out and talk about it. But I also think we're working with one of the major retailers, and their audience is sort of 18 to 24, Gen
Yeah,
Zs, and wonderful, such a great demographic. And in talking to them, we went out and surveyed all their audiences and all their staff. And the survey that came back, the info that came back was, you know what, we're really happy to talk about it. We're done with the destigmatization. There's not a lot of stigma at that age group. And I think it's such a wonderful thing to have, because we can move beyond the
yeah,
kind of let's all have a talk about it, which we absolutely need to do, to how do we help people, and how do we have that next conversation. So I think the role of mental health in Australia is moving so fast, and this year alone has propelled mental health
yeah.
to the top of the conversation. Really, COVID and mental health kind of go hand in hand, and I think, we're certainly seeing a much more acceptance and understanding that the circumstances we're all under are going to make us all feel a bit less good.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah, in a world, oh, not a world, a year that's been a bit odd. I think a few positive is it's helped bring that mental health conversation forward probably a few years, and then as you said, with the age group at 18 to 24 going, we want to break it. It's really going to help the age group under them. So when they're our age, it's kind of just not a normal thing, but it's okay to speak. They're just going to the doctors like if they've got a mental health thing going on, they're going on to the doctors like you do if you've got a runny nose. Or so I think that's a really good spread, and I think that's a really good note to leave on. And once again, appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I know October is real busy, and you've had a hectic year by the sounds of it, but it means a lot to me that you've come on and spent the time talking about your role and Blackdog, and it's an institute that's doing an amazing work. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, James. And mate, well done to you for starting this podcast. It's no easy thing to start a podcast, and in the mental health space, and it's everything starts from nothing. And well done on getting this up and going and helping to spread awareness and talking about mental health. It's people like you in the community that we need. So hats off to you, mate. Well done.
Thank you, Taz. I appreciate that, and yeah, I've really wanted to start it. It's really a what's the word? Can't think of the word actually. I've gone blank, but something I'm really interested in, and it's a passion. There we go. It came to me there.
Yeah.
Um, it's a passion of mine, mental health. So if I can help a couple of people listening or anything like that, even break the stigma, is the world to me. And even if nothing comes of it, I get to meet, amazing people, and I've got to meet you and have you on. So I appreciate that. And yeah, it's really good. So you look after yourself. I appreciate it again. And yeah, thank you.
Great. You too. Thanks very much, James. Good luck,
Thank
mate.
you, sir. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.